I want to talk to you guys for a sec. A little bit more about our boy Oppenheimer. Okay, I liked the movie a lot. Um, and one of the things that shocked me about it was like it actually gave a pretty honest representation of the kind of insane, deep state repression that was going on through the Red Scare. Okay. I didn't know anything really about Oppenheimer, bro. Clearly, the guy was a commie sympathizer. All right, they make that pretty evident. Yeah, I mean, basically they show him going to Communist Party meetings. That's where he meets his long-term girlfriend. That's actually also, I believe, where he ends up meeting his long-term wife. Now, it's possible that our boy Oppie was just going to these party meetings to get some pussy, but unlikely that that was just the case because his brother was also a fervent, like, full-on Communist Party member. Yo, sure. Our boy Oppie was going to these Communist Party meetings, and while he was never part of a member of the party, clearly, bro, he had sympathies. I feel like that's pretty safe to say. When he was confronted about him being a communist or whatever, he said, "No, I'm a New Deal Democrat." And for any of you guys who know anything about, American history, a New Deal Democrat basically just means kind of a socialist. You know what I mean? Definitely like further left than Bernie Sanders, okay, by a relative margin. New Deal Democrat refers to, I believe, FDR, who, in order to combat the Great Depression, he effectively castrated a lot of the biggest capitalists. He raised the taxes for the wealthiest people to a extremely high degree, in a relative sense, and effectively he just, made the welfare state pretty solid, provided people with a lot of resources, at least, white people with a lot of resources. And it basically kind of actually did help America escape the Great Depression and the fucking brutality of that. That's what I was basically thinking while I was watching. I was like, damn, Oppenheimer, holy fuck. So, throughout the movie, while they don't paint a perfect picture, they totally fucking display how the Red Scare, especially the second Red Scare, turned into just straight up cancel culture. Like worse than cancel culture, because people were losing their fucking jobs and in some cases losing their fucking lives. Let me break it down for you here, okay? So you're about to get a little bit of a history lesson, and I'm going to try and intertwine it with Oppenheimer as much as I can. But long story short, first Red Scare, quick. In 1917, I believe, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia takes place. First communist government to, be instilled. America, slightly spooked by that. Kind of heavily spooked, actually, because guess what? There was also slight socialist movements within America. And so, what did they do? They didn't acknowledge the Soviets. They didn't acknowledge the communist Russia for a number, I think almost a decade, maybe 2 decades almost. And basically they had a big crackdown in America on anybody who was first of all, anti-war, because the First World War was taking place, obviously. So they had a crackdown on anyone who was anti-war. A lot of communists or socialists or anarchists, whatever, basically just leftist people. They were anti-war just by principle, so they were protesting pretty heavily. There was the Sedition Act, which basically made it literally so that you could not criticize the war. You know what I mean? You actively it was literally you just if you criticize the war in a way where it's we shouldn't be fighting the war, yeah, you were just effectively either put in jail or straight up what's the word? Deported. Because a lot of the people who were kind of lefties were immigrants from Europe, okay? And so you just got straight up deported. Bye-bye! Yeah, so the first Red Scare kind of, made being a leftist in America not fucking cool and like actually kind of a risk. But you know, obviously after the Great Depression, what happened? People are economically completely fucked. They realize their government's not doing much to help them. There was another big leftist fucking movement. A lot of communist parties started forming. Oppenheimer was a part of this, okay? Oppenheimer, our boy, and his brother apparently ended up joining the party, and his lovers, whatever. This was a whole kind of generation of young people who were like disenfranchised as fuck. And so, yeah, they would kind of like interact with communist parties. And kind of like, I guess it was partially a social thing, right? Like, picture back then, this is hard for us to imagine now, but picture back then, there's no fucking internet, none of this bullshit. But going to like a communist party meeting or whatever is kind of like one of the better ways to like socialize and meet people that you have common things in interest with, right? It is a good way to meet women too. So Oppenheimer had that down. But it's like going to church, right? Like going to church, a big part of church, like, yeah, you believe in maybe, you know, you believe in the religion, communist meetings. Yeah, maybe you believe in communism or some of the ideas, or you're curious, whatever. But like for a lot of people, those things were just communities, right? Where you could maintain and grow relationships and meet friends and whatever. Anyway, so basically, there was this resurgence. Then the New Deal occurred, and a lot of like this leftist kind of, you know, stuff, it got kind of curbed a little bit because basically the working class got, you know, they got some concessions, and so life was less shit for them. Chris has as much singing skills as he has upper lip, bro. That's facts. Now, our boy Oppenheimer, because he was associated with the Communist Party, it's seen in the movie, he gets a fuck ton of heat for that. And this is why. Okay, let me break down the history. The Second World War happens. And bro, everything leading up to the Second World War, people were like nervous about fascism. That was like the newest thing where people were like, whoa, dude. Like, they really fucking hate Jews. And in Italy, they really are like clamping down. Fascism is a scary thing throughout Europe, and the echoes of fascism are absolutely hitting America. So that's the main thing that people were like fear-mongering and getting nervous about. During the war, obviously, completely 100%, people were fixated on fascism. People were so like united on disliking fascists and the Germans, right? Unless they were Henry Ford, but no. The thing that they were basically saying is like, we're all just working together to destroy the fascists. So they didn't really give a fuck about the communist Russians, right? Because they were technically our allies. As the war with Germany progressed, there was more and more cautiousness about how the U.S. interacted with Russia, right? Because they were understanding as the war was coming, you know, potentially to a close. Because once America and Russia were involved, yeah, Germany kind of fucked themselves. The Japanese too, obviously. But yeah, as the war was kind of, you know, coming to a close, America realized, and they understood very well, that Russia was going to be their next potential very large opponent, right, on the world stage. And so you see it in the movie. Basically, they wanted monopoly over the nuke. Truman fully thought that America would basically be the only country to ever own the nuke. And what you need to understand about America, they're not afraid to fuck people up internationally, okay? Dropping the nuke was some people will view it as justifiable because of the war in Japan, all this shit, yeah. But when the war ended and they won, and yay, Oppenheimer fucking saved the day, World War II is over, hooray. As soon as that war was over, there was a lot of fucking opportunity in America's eyes because they had just demonstrated their undeniable power. Britain was crippled by the war. The vast majority of Europe was destroyed. Fucking Italy, France, Germany, destroyed. And yeah, they had a weapon of mass destruction. The one thing that they needed to fucking do was to maintain their monopoly on the nuke, and they had almost unlimited leverage internationally. This leads to the fucking leaks. When you see in the movie Oppenheimer, the people around the basically they're on the round table. There's Strauss there. There's a bunch of people talking about like who the fuck leaked our information. This was a big problem that occurred. There were basically a number of spies, Soviet spies, who were actively trying to leak the nukes. Now, Oppenheimer was approached by one of his older friends, potentially to relay information to Russia, but apparently he didn't do this. And this is proven by fact because, like, later, none of the Soviets' paperwork ever showed that Oppenheimer was one of their agents. It literally doesn't make sense. It's just like Oppenheimer was a fucking American, patriot. Like, feel like that's pretty damn undeniable. But yeah, like, they basically maintained their monopoly over the fucking nuke for like fucking 2 years, and then it leaked, and then a few years later, 1949, the first tests of the nuclear bomb occurred. Okay? In Russia, sorry. The first nuke that Russia made, the first tests occurred in 49. And that was the moment when it was like, fuck. So the Russians have a nuke as well. We're not just big dick America now. A lot happened at that time. Because in the same year, 1949, China also fucking turned communist as well. So keep in mind, after the war ends with Germany, fascism crushed. Now the fucking commies are the real enemies, I guess. Like the fucking next potential enemy, right? This is why it was a Cold War, because there was no overt fucking war between Russia and the US, but it was all like these proxy wars. 1949, China turns red. Pretty big L for America. There's an agreement between the Soviets and the Chinese. Yikes, pretty much. This was viewed as like a massive L because the Americans were actively like trying to not let that happen. They were fucking funding the war basically for the existing government in China. And in 1950, sorry, I'm getting a little bit tired, but I'm doing my best. In 1950, the Korean War occurred, okay? So what you need to understand about fucking Korea, right? Now I've been to Korea. Interesting place. I've been to South Korea, sorry. I would like to go to North Korea, but maybe not possible. We'll see. Anyway, so here's Korea. The big thing to note about it. Connected literally by land to China, okay? Bigger caps. So China turns red. And now suddenly there's a war in Korea, right? Because basically, China encourages the Korean Communist Party, which was, headed by fucking Kim Jong-un's, I think, granddad or father or something. Basically encourages them to take over, right? Kim Il-sung. The Americans are like, nope, fuck that shit. We are going to start fighting this war. And guess what? The nukes were on the table, bro. The nukes were absolutely on the table. 1 second. So the Korean War was the first real like aggressive test of America's, willingness to crush communism, okay? And let me lay out the situation for you. Truman, the same guy in Oppenheimer, who allowed the nukes to be dropped on Japan, he was getting flack on multiple sides, okay? Because basically he was worried about growing communist sentiment in America, right? Because once basically the USSR was like a superpower as well, there was a lot of support for the USSR within America. So Truman needed to worry about those kinds of people. He kind of needed to cater to them a bit to, satisfy them like they did with the New Deal. But at the same time, Truman had a lot of fucking hard right-leaning people in his ear saying, bro, you are way too soft on the communists. You need to stamp them on the fucking into the earth. And during the Korean War, General MacArthur, who was a World War II general, one of the most well-known generals in American history, and I believe his father or someone related to him was even like involved in World War One. Like this is like hereditary, I believe. These guys are like respected generals. He was in charge of the Korean War, and his idea was literally, let's fucking nuke them. How ballsy is that? Just take that in for a second. Because there's a number of levels as to why that is an incredibly ballsy thing to propose. Number one, you had the excuse when you bombed Japan that you were just testing the nukes. You didn't really know what it'll do, Who knows? You also had the excuse of we're trying to end like World War II and Japan fucking bombed Pearl Harbor, right? Like there's a certain level of like, self-defense, Bob. Like, fuck off. The Korean War. This is not like defensive, really. America is really over leveraging themselves to defend the Koreans. They're basically being like the global fucking, police or whatever. Not only that, but to drop a nuke on North Korea could potentially poison South Korea. Your allies, And beyond that, the Soviets have just tested a fucking nuke and succeeded in their tests. So the Soviets effectively have a nuke too, right? So if you were to drop a fucking nuke on North Korea, and the Russians are siding with the Chinese because they're both communists at this point, although the Russians and the Chinese would eventually split. I don't know, just even though they're both communists, whatever. But at this time, they're on each other's side. Like, it's just a massive risk, basically, to start actually using fucking nukes when now Russia has nukes too. So basically, long story short, we're gonna look into something fucking interesting here. Look at this shit. Douglas MacArthur's plan to win the Korean War. Jesus Christ. MacArthur's final plan for winning the Korean War was outlined in this report to this reporter in an interview on his 74th birthday. Of all the campaigns in my life, 20 major ones to be exact, the one I felt the most sure of was the one I was deprived of waging properly. I could have won the Korean War in a maximum of 10 days. Once the campaign was underway, and with considerable fewer casualties than were suffered during the so-called truce period, it would have altered the course of history. The enemy's air would first have been taken out. I would have dropped between 30 to 50 tactical atomic bombs on his air bases and other depots strung across the neck of Manchuria from just across the Yalu at Antong to the neighborhood of Hunchun. That many bombs would have more than done the job, dropped under the cover of darkness when his planes were in further night. They would have destroyed his air force on the ground, wiped out his maintenance and his airmen. With the destruction of the enemy's air power, I would then have called upon 500,000 Chiang Kai-shek's troops, sweetened by 2 U.S. Marine divisions. These would have been formed into 2 amphibious forces. Anyway, long story short, he wanted to fucking blast their asses with nukes. 30 to 50, that's insane. But I think he has like a banger line here. Oh, right. Okay, so would MacArthur really have employed atomic weapons in Korea and Red China, as the Considine interview asserted? Basically, yes. Long story short, yes. In a memo to President Eisenhower in December 1952, MacArthur suggested basically the same plan as he shared with Considine. Jesus Christ. It was in our power to destroy the Red Chinese army and Chinese military power, and probably for all time. My plan was a cinch. I was refused the right to carry it out by a group of isolationists and politically minded Joint Chiefs. You may be surprised to hear Truman, Aitchison, Marshall, and the others called isolationists. They were the true isolationists. God damn. So basically, long story short, MacArthur wanted to fucking nuke Korea in the Korean War, and Truman was like, buddy, fuck off. Are you crazy? Are you fucked in the head? He told him to take a hike, and it was a bit of a big scandal at the time. Basically, MacArthur was still a war hero, is what you need to understand. So Truman just let go of a war hero, which confused the fuck out of people. Yeah. And so this is kind of the world that we're living in right now, where the communist threat is there. America thought that they had this trump card with the nuke, but like now the Russians might have the nuke, so not a massive, leg up. Basically, this is when the second big, fat, fucking hulking Red Scare started, okay? You see it again in Oppenheimer. These motherfuckers, the opportunists started striking because there was a bunch of fucking ordinances signed to effectively give a ton of budget to the FBI in order for the FBI to root out communists within the government. And what did this mean, rooting out communists within the government? Yeah, you know what it meant? It meant that anybody with like a slight left lean, that was a little bit too left lean maybe, or that maybe people just didn't like, you were put on trial, you lost your job, or you were put in jail. Okay? Literally 3 million fucking investigations. 3 million fucking investigations into people who worked in the government because of this fucking Red Scare. Okay? A ton of people got fired. And this was called McCarthyism, by the way. Not after General MacArthur, but there was an opportunistic ass motherfucker in the Senate, I believe. He was basically like a politician guy who was like the spearhead of like, we gotta get these fucking commies out of our government. These piece of shit commies. Oh, fuck me. MacArthur basically turned the Emperor of Japan into a puppet of his political will after they occupied Japan. Did they not know the effects of radiation back then? They had an idea. Here's the thing you need to understand. Another reason why Truman, I guess, thought that MacArthur was a fucking idiot is that they were worried that the winds from dropping nukes on Korea could potentially blow toward Japan, who is now currently their military occupied ally, right? So they were actually considering it, I guess, but they understood that there was potential for a much worse fucking calamity. Yeah. Yeah, anyway. They, yeah. There was also some spies that leaked, they got caught leaking fucking info about the atomic bomb. I'm surprised that Nolan didn't emphasize this. But yeah, there was two people, a husband and a wife, who got caught leaking information to Russia on the nuclear bomb, and they got fucking executed by the U.S. government. Literally executed. So they were not fucking around. Yeah. Basically, what you need to understand about the Red Scare is that this shit was actually straight up hysteria, okay? And again, it's very well orchestrated and demonstrated in Oppenheimer. But like people were like feverishly freaking the fuck out about communists. And this was the flames of this paranoia were totally fanned by fucking conservatives at the time, right? Because look, long story short, the conservatives had kind of taken a beating over the last 2 decades, right? They had lost a bunch of fucking, you know, ground, I guess you could say, with the women's suffragette movement. Basically, like, women got the right to vote. Um, they child labor laws were fucking, you know, a lot less lenient. There was a lot of like just general labor laws that were less, you know, lenient. Long story short, it wasn't like a great time to be a fucking conservative. And so when they caught wind of this Red Scare, they took full fucking advantage, hardcore. Suddenly, you know, the possibility of nuclear warfare is like being talked about in every classroom. There's tons and tons of movies and propaganda being developed that's like anti-communist, all this shit. And they actively even like shoved their fucking fist into Hollywood, right? And would put on trial, on public trial. I think it was called like the un-American fucking some shit like that. It was like a trial basically, where they were like calling people un-American. Like, it was a trial to see if you're an American citizen basically. I don't know how to put it, but like they would put Hollywood directors, Hollywood writers, Hollywood's fucking producers on trial in front of the public to basically like out them as communists. All right, and this is all fucking pretty well known. Reagan was a guy who took advantage of this, you know, allegedly. I guess he snitched on communists. I think this is a fact, but you know, take with a grain of salt. He talked about them in the Strauss section, if I remember correctly. 1 second. Yeah. Basically, okay. There was a lot of basically people. Okay, you know how Jordan Peterson says like postmodern neo-Marxists are trying to destroy our nation. So picture that, but like they are literally like fucking trying to put the communists in jail, deport them, and like make them, you know, lose their jobs. Okay, and these postmodern neo-Marxists or whatever the fuck, like you're like blaming them for like the New Deal. Like the New Deal was like communist or some shit. When in reality, the New Deal actually was literally put in place just to save capitalism. That's something people don't understand. FDR introduced the New Deal, not because he fucking was a commie, but because he literally wanted to save capitalism. Anyway, what's funny is in Russia, a similar thing was happening. Like, this was a fucked up. So here's the thing, right? There's so much propaganda in the US that is anti-Russia, basically, right? Which makes perfect sense. In the USSR, there was the exact fucking same shit toward the Americans. What's funny, though, is that both of them were, like, authoritarian as fuck, okay? Straight up. In Russia, though, Stalin, I mean, even, like, decades prior, he started his Great Purges, right? Stalin's purges, whatever you want to call it, where he was straight up actually just executing, like, party members who didn't fall in line with his, you know, his interpretation, basically, of communism. Yeah, so in America, I think it was like 52 or something, but like, what's his name? Eisenhower, who was another general during World War II. This guy signed a bill that I believe it was a bill that like basically made it so that you were not allowed to be gay and work for the government. Hey, thanks. I'm gonna use what you said right now to rizz up a girl tomorrow at the bar. Yeah, yeah, you're good, bro. Anyway. Yeah, so while all these trials are going on and like people in Hollywood are getting hardcore blacklisted and Reagan's having a Reagan moment where he's just snitching on his fucking boys who are like low-key kind of lefties, potentially just fucking, you know, lying, who knows. Similar shit's happening in Russia. And our boy Eisenhower just straight up is just fucking over all the public service people who were gay, basically. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Holy shit. This is so crazy. Okay, look. So, President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 53 signs an executive order that bans homosexuals from working for the federal government, saying they are a security risk. Obviously, you need to keep in mind that, like, the postmodern neo-Marxists at this time, like, people were basically conflating being gay, and being, I guess a feminist, being like, pro-worker, like all of these, like, just general left shit, right? I guess. Conservatives were conflating all of that with Marxism, right? When in reality, you can be literally, like, you can just be gay and be a conservative. But anyway, bro, I didn't realize it took them that long. It's fucking crazy too, because Britain, Alan Turing, the motherfucker who cracked the code, dude, dude, that's fucking awful, man. Alan Turing, you might have seen The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch. Similar kind of historical epic. He's the guy who cracked the Nazis' code in how they were relaying messages, and very much helped in the completion of the war. Yeah, British fuck, who was gay, and he is another genius who helped the fucking war effort tremendously. And what did this guy get in return for helping his country? He got outed as gay. And what happens when you were gay in England in fucking 1950? You were forcibly sterilized. So he had to take fucking pills that sterilized him. And yeah, died in fucking 54. Did he kill himself, fuck, or what happened? His death was determined a suicide, but it has been noted that the known evidence is also consistent with accidental poisoning. Alright. Nice. Anyway, yeah, so our boy Eisenhower, fucking guy, he made it, yeah, so you can't be gay and work for the government. And guess what this did? Did this make the government more safe, more sound? No, actually. You know what it did? It basically turned cancel culture into the most fucked, incredibly, disturbingly opportunistic cesspit of people trying to out their fucking colleagues, of the FBI actively investigating people's fucking private lives just to see if they're fucking gay so that they can get fired. Mentally insane. On top of, if you're a fucking communist, imagine you're a gay communist, bro. You're fucked. You're getting killed. Oh, for real though, that's some real cancel culture shit, bro. This shit's fucking hell. This is called the Lavender Scare. This is shit. I can't believe this shit's real. I literally cannot believe this shit's real. But it's fully documented, bro. Lavender Scare was a moral panic about homosexual people in the United States government, which led to their mass dismissal from government service during the mid-20th century. What a fucking joke. What a fucking waste of time and fucking energy, man. So yeah. God bless Chris Nolan for kind of like bringing to the mainstream this shit a little bit, like flirting with it in the mainstream. Yeah, the opportunism that was caused by the Red Scare cannot be understated, bro. That Strauss guy, who it's revealed through the plot of Oppenheimer, he basically like poisoned the well and kind of got Oppenheimer, bashed in the public eye. Yeah, that was an opportunistic guy who was using the fucking fears of communism to reach his own ends. Bro, please get a haircut. He does kind of look like Keflis, bro. You guys are fucking talking about my haircut? Am I boring you this fucking badly? Mamma mia, bruta besta shade. Alright. End of the video. Thank you. Very depressing fucking way to end off on this. Is it? Bro, I look like a fucking Greek emaciated Keffels, okay? Fine. Jesus, fuck off, alright? I'm not fucking trans. I'm gonna cut my cock off. Alright, that's a good contribution. Anyway, alright.